In my first year of teaching public speaking in the Bronx, a large, notoriously underfunded borough of New York City, I was teaching my 5th grade students when one asked why there haven't been any female presidents in the United States. So I prompted them to guess why, and one 8-year-old girl said, "Because it's illegal for girls to be president?" Some laughed at her, and I asked why, and they said, "Obviously it's not illegal." But is it really that obvious? Say 2,000 years from now, humans are studying the fallen empires of today. If there was nothing left of our society beyond a history class poster of all the US presidents, we would notice there were no women. And there'd be few options to assume why. Either women were legally not allowed to be president, never wanted to be president, or simply didn't know how to speak. Or, more realistically, women did know how to speak. Wanted to be president, could be president, but were never chosen as the winners. And then we'd have to ask, why? In the competitive world, there have been endless studies into the likelihood of female competitors besting males and vice versa, but many of these focus on competitions with objective scores to determine the winner. Shots made in the basket, time to run 200 meters, and so on. In subjective competitions, like elections, art competitions, or competitive debate, there should reasonably be a 50-50 win ratio, since biological gender differences shouldn't be an issue. And yet, they are. I've taken part in competitive speech and debate for over half my life, and in that time I've had countless rounds, pages of feedback from judges that would rival the most prolific of writers. And I'm not going to share stories from other women in debate because they're not my stories to tell. But I can say I've had my fair share of judge bias. For those who don't know, competitive speech and debate, or forensics, is an international activity where students dress up in suits and go to a local school to give timed speeches or compete in hour-long debates against other well-dressed students for the glory of being named the best. Judges are told to keep their personal opinions out of the debate. Say the topic is, we should ban plastic. Even if you are the owner of a plastic factory, you gotta let that go and vote for the side with the best arguments, evidence, and speaking skills. And yet, I've been told things in my feedback that have nothing to do with any of those. One speech round, 4th place. Your heels were too big for you. All right. Another debate round, sophomore year, around my female partner and I lost against 2 males. Your voice has a girlish quiver. Okay. As any debater knows, though, anecdotes aren't evidence. Luckily, I have some. In 2020, 2 debaters published a comprehensive study of over 125,000 public forum debate rounds, a style of debate in which 2 teams of 2 competitors debate a motion related to whether or not some policy decision has more benefits than harms. The same style of debate I competed in for years. The results of the study found that in randomized competitions, female-female teams were 24.2% less likely to win against male-male teams. And in some regions of the United States, it was as high as 28%. But there is no enemy. The same study notes that there was no improvement in win rate when female debaters had female judges, implying there was some implicit bias against female debaters by judges of all genders. And their findings and feedback sound familiar. Female debaters were 50% more likely to receive feedback on being overly aggressive or having an overuse of emotion than their male counterparts, and when they did, they were less likely to win. When male debaters received the same feedback, they were still more likely to win. By their senior year, 64.7% of female debaters stopped participating in competitive forensics. They are 30% more likely to quit than males. Wow, that was a lot of data. I'm a debater, I like evidence. But I just want you guys to understand the facts so you can see my confusion. Debate isn't weightlifting, so why does it have the same gendered win ratios we would expect to see in sports? The stereotype threat. Coined by Dr. Claude Steele in the 90s, the stereotype threat is a psychosocial threat that penetrates our mind when we are in a situation or facing a challenge for which a negative stereotype about our group applies. The apprehension, the fear of confirming that negative stereotype about our group causes us to overthink and fail at the activity. Or, while judging others, over-observe for cues that the individual is succumbing to their stereotype. Essentially, we focus more on ensuring we don't confirm that negative stereotype instead of the task at hand. Or, vice versa, that we are upholding a positive stereotype. Let's use an example, one phrase that has haunted me all my life. Blondes have more fun. I'm at a party, and I know everyone expects the blonde to have more fun, so I'm hyper aware of appearing fun, and I end up overcompensating, trying too hard in conversations, coming off awkward and insincere. The others pick up on this tension, and they assume I'm having a terrible time, because blondes are supposed to have more fun. But the stereotype threat has impacts beyond an embarrassing night. It can result in real cognitive decline. The Alzheimer's Drug Discovery Foundation has published studies that show that older adults who are primed with negative stereotypes about age perform worse on cognitive tests. With attention on the stereotype, there's less of the brain to focus on the task. Attention shifts from performance to avoiding errors, leading to second guessing and overall declined performance. It's not just that girls who think they're stereotyped to be less smart than boys are going to be more stressed at debate competitions, stuttering more and overthinking their arguments. Someone can literally overthink themselves into getting Alzheimer's early. The risk of Alzheimer's, by the way, a degenerative disease that erases your memory, is increased if you have a gene called APOE4. It's not guaranteed, but you're around 1,200% more likely to. In addition to this basic risk, women are 10 times more likely to develop the disease than men when 2 copies of the gene are present. It's so high risk that if you do a DNA test like 23andMe, you'll get a disclaimer with your results saying that they might trigger depression and anxiety. That's what we read when my mom and I got our DNA tested and learned that we have the APOE4 gene. We already knew from watching my great-grandmother and my aunts succumb to the disease, forgetting who we were, their whole families, but this test was our confirmation. What's most interesting about that study I mentioned earlier, though, and has implications beyond Alzheimer's, is that participants who had negative stereotypes primed upon them were least impacted by the negative stereotypes if those participants were more socially active or tested in a familiar environment. When we go back to our problem in debate, the solution is cliche, but scientifically backed. Keep trying. Allow the environment to become familiar, and don't assume your most recent performance is your best. At the end of the day, I will forget my time in debate. And when I'm asked years from now what it was like to be a public speaker, I might not even be able to speak. One day, maybe soon, my mom, who was once a professor, will forget who I am. She's in her 60s now, and she told me she doesn't like to read anymore. What's the point of reading, she said, if I will forget what I learned? I don't blame her. I mean, I'm delivering a memorized speech right now, and when my Alzheimer's kicks in, I won't just forget what I'm saying, I will forget I was ever even here. So, what is the point? I think a lot of us want to fight this and say, no, there is a point, but I find comfort in it. In fact, I think it's the reason I'm good at debate. I wanted to insert an inspirational quote here, but the funny thing about Googling comforting dementia quote is that they're all for people who are family of those with Alzheimer's and not those of us who actually know we're gonna get it. So I prefer ones about forgetting, which are ironically always positive. Forgive your enemies, forget their wrongdoings, forget the past, live now, forget this, forget that. It's always good. So my favorite is from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. He says, "Blessed are the forgetful, for they get the better even of their mistakes." So I'm not afraid of messing up right now. I could fall flat on my face, forget all my lines, pee my pants on stage. It doesn't matter, I'll forget it ever happened. I may be primed with knowing that my DNA makes it very likely I will get Alzheimer's, but I can change how that affects my performance by reframing it as a strength rather than a weakness. So, why bother doing something if you're stereotyped to lose? Well, if others' expectations of you are low, that just makes it even easier to impress them. Despite some weird feedback from judges, after high school, I was recruited to a top 10 forensics team, offered a job coaching debate in New York City while I was still in college, and later invited to teach my skills on the other side of the world here in Shenzhen. The point is, you could change someone's worldview, inspire others to join debate or anything, and stay in it even when they lose. Read a book you'll forget when you're old. It doesn't matter, because other people will remember. So, run for president, even if nobody like you has ever won before. Socialize with people like you who won't give up, and make a new stereotype. Because I mean, if believing in them makes them come true, it might as well be a good one. Thank you so much.